محمد بن عبد العزيز قال حدثنا عبد الملك بن الخطاب بن عبيد الله بن أبي بكرة البصري رضي الله عنه لقيته بالرملة قال حدثني راشد أبو محمد عن شهر بن حوشب عن أم الدرداء رضي الله عنها عن أبي الدرداء رضي الله عنه قال أوصاني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بتسع: لا تشرك بالله شيئا وإن قطعت أو حرقت، ولا تتركن الصلاة المكتوبة متعمدا، ومن تركها متعمدا برئت منه الذمة، ولا تشربن الخمر فإنها مفتاح كل شر، وأطع والديك وإن أمراك أن تخرج من دنياك فاخرج لهما، ولا تنزعن ولاة الأمر وإن رأيت أنك أنت، ولا تفر من الزحف وإن هلكت وفر أصحابك، وأنفق من طولك على أهلك، ولا ترفع عصاك على أهلك، وأخفهم في الله عز وجل. Continuing with the book of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, Al-Adab Al-Mufrad. We are today on the 9th chapter, and these chapters are also regarding the etiquettes of the parents. Adab Al-Walidain, specifically talking about etiquettes and the adab regarding the parents. So in this chapter, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah is mentioning one more adab, and that is يَبَرُّ وَالِدَيْهِ مَا لَمْ يَكُنْ مَعْصِيَةً, always obeying your parents as long as they're not commanding to do some sort of sin, as long as it's not a disobedience of Allah. يَبَرُّ وَالِدَيْهِ, always doing the obedience, always obeying one's parents. Anything they tell you to do, whether it's to do with deen, whether it's to do with dunya, obey your parents. Every matter, every command, everything they tell you to do, obey them and follow their instructions as long as it's not a sin. If they tell you to do something that is sin, that is haram, then of course don't obey them. But everything else, whatever it may be, always obey your parents. So this is the chapter. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah brings few ahadith in this chapter. The first hadith Imam Bukhari rahimahullah brings is narrated by Darda radiallahu anha, who narrates from her own husband, Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, because in those days, of course, the Sahaba used to attend the masajid and they used to hear the ahadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then they would teach those ahadith to their wives and their families at home. And this is a lesson for everyone, that whenever we learn something outside in the masajid or anywhere, we pass it down to our family, into our homes, and we teach those lessons to our families. So Darda radiallahu anha narrating this hadith that Abu Darda, her own husband, had taught her. So Abu Darda radiallahu anhu says, قال أوصاني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بتسع. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had advised me of 9 things. So these are 9 advices of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Before we, of course, understand and learn what those 9 advices are, the purpose of Prophet ﷺ teaching these advices is to, of course, practice upon them. So let's all make our intentions correct before we learn those 9, that whatever these 9 are, whether they're easy or hard, we want to make sure that we are following these 9 advices of Rasulullah ﷺ. The first advice, لا تشرك بالله شيئا وإن قطعت أو حرقت. Do not associate partners with Allah, even if you are cut into pieces or you are burnt in fire. This is instruction or advice number 1. Do not associate any partners with Allah. Always do everything, your ibadah, your good deeds. Always do it for the sake of Allah, for the pleasure of Allah. Anything, so this should be our intention. It should be in our minds whenever we do anything, whether it's to do with our deen, whether it's the ibadah, or it's something to do with our dunya. Whatever we're doing, we're helping someone, we're picking something up, we're driving someone, whatever we're doing, let's ask ourselves before doing it, is Allah going to be pleased with this amal, or He's not going to be pleased? If it is something that will please Allah, yes, go ahead and we should do that. And if it's something that will displease Allah, we should right away stop and not do that thing. So first thing is, لا تشرك بالله شيئا, do not associate partners with Allah. Always do it for the sake of Allah. Anything that we should do, make Allah the being that we should do everything for. Don't make partners that I do something for Allah and then sometimes I'll do something to please someone else and to please someone else. No, only have this intention that I want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we have this focus in our mind, and whenever we do anything, small or big, whether it's deen or dunya, anything, if we ask ourselves this question and we act upon this, that we only want to do it if it pleases Allah, and we don't want to do it if it displeases Allah, our everything in our life will be to please Allah, and it will get us to Jannah. A person will be protected from sins, from any type of anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he has this thing in his mind, that I'm only going to do everything only that will please Allah, and I will not do anything that will displease Allah. And then la tushrik billahi shay'an, of course, the greater meaning of that, the higher meaning of that, the initial meaning of it is that we don't do kufr. We always stay in the fold of Islam. We always stay as believers. Of course, the ones who don't believe in Allah, they are the ones who are doing shirk. They are mushrikeen. They are associating partners with Allah. Idol worshippers, sun worshippers, star worshippers, fire worshippers. There are different people that worship different. Some people worship even the cow, as we learned before. There is a group in India, right, that worship the cow. I was listening to someone's lecture, and he was telling us that once he was driving in India, and on the road, a cow came in the middle of the road, and the cars were not able to pass by. You're not allowed to honk on that cow. You have to let it sit, and whenever it decides to move, only then you can drive your car. You cannot move it away, you cannot honk at it, you can't do anything. If you do, you get fined, you can get arrested, you can get a ticket. This is what they worship. So la tushrik billah, do not associate any partners with Allah. Always stay in the fold of Iman and Islam. وَإِن قُطِّعْتَ أَوْ حُرِّقْتَ, even if you are cut into pieces. This is where the real test comes. May Allah protect all of us and not put us in that situation where we are tested. Our Iman is being tested. But of course, if you look at the lives of Sahaba incidents where they were actually, this was literally done to them. They were cut into pieces because they were believers. And in order, the pressure was that you have to turn away from Islam, or else you'll be cut into pieces. I remember once we read a hadith regarding Khabbab radiallahu anhu. Khabbab radiallahu anhu, he was amongst the early Muslims from the people of Mecca who initially became Muslims. And we know their life in that time, they were extremely difficult situation. They were always being tortured, they were always being beaten and tortured in different ways, only so that they were pressured to turn away from Islam. Khabbab radiallahu anhu, and of course many more Sahaba have similar incidents. Khabbab radiallahu anhu, the punishment they used to give to him for accepting Islam, for being a mu'min, was that they used to burn metal rods, and they would burn it into fire until it becomes red, the color changes, and then they would put that metal rod on Khabbab radiallahu anhu's body. Extreme hot, and he would burn, and the only thing was, just say you don't believe in Prophet ﷺ, just say you're not a believer, and we will not do any more tortures to you. And we know Khabbab radiallahu anhu and all the other Sahaba, they always practiced this on this advice, that they would never do shirk, they would not utter a word of shirk, even when they are being tortured in the worst possible way. Khabbab radiallahu anhu once complained to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ya Rasulullah, can you make dua for us? And this is a dua that we all would probably ask Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam if this situation would happen. Ya Rasulullah, I'm being tortured in these ways, can you make dua for us? That Allah protect us and save us from these calamities. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam got upset. Look at this amazing lesson that Prophet ﷺ is teaching Khabbab radiallahu anhu. Prophet ﷺ got upset and he said that, don't you remember the people of the past ummahs, that when they were being tortured, they were being pressured to turn away, they did not turn away? And then he mentioned some examples. He said that there was a person from the past who was cut into half. He was cut from the middle of his body, from his head all the way till the bottom. He was cut exactly in half, and that did not turn him away from his deen. And then Prophet ﷺ gave another example. He said there was another person in the past who, while being alive, his skin was taken apart. These are the things that we can just read the stories, but we cannot even imagine. We cannot even think of how painful these situations are. That the person, his skin is being taken off, his meat is being taken off his body, and the person is still firm on his deen, and he's not uttering a word against Islam. So Prophet ﷺ taught Khabbab radiallahu anhu these lessons, that do sabr, just like the people of the past did. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help will come to you. So this was first advice of Rasulullah ﷺ, that always stay firm on your iman, never do shirk with Allah, even if you are cut into pieces or you are burnt in fire. Hurriqta, burn in fire. We all know the incident of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was pressured and he was tortured and he was literally put into fire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help with him was that the fire became like garden, became peaceful, the fire did not burn him. And we find this similar incident in our ummah, in this ummah too. There was a scholar by the name of Abu Muslim Al-Khawlani rahimahullah, a great muhaddith, who was from the tabi'een. Abu Muslim Al-Khawlani rahimahullah, who was, there's no one here from, I think, Yemen, but this scholar, originally he is a Yemeni scholar. And if we look at the history of Yemen, there's a lot of scholars and a lot of awliyaullah that were from Yemen. Prophet ﷺ has given a lot of glad tidings for the people of Yemen too. So Abu Muslim Al-Khawlani rahimahullah, originally from Yemen, a muhaddith, a scholar, he was from the tabi'een, and he was a well-known scholar of his time. Very famous, very well accepted amongst the people. People respected him, honored him, listened to him. There was a person at that time by the name of Musaylama al-Kadhab. I'm sure we all know who Musaylama al-Kadhab was. He was the one who claimed to be a prophet after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, in fact, towards the end life of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he started his claim, and he made this claim very public and very all over the place after Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during the Khilafah of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhum. Anyway, so Musaylim al-Kadhab, in order to authenticate his message that he was claiming that I am a new prophet, he wanted people to believe. First, he was convincing people, he was announcing to people. Of course, people were not easily accepting this, because they all know, everyone knew that Prophet ﷺ was the last prophet, the final prophet, no other prophet can come after him. So this person, Musaylim al-Kadhab, when he wanted to announce his statement and want people to believe in him, what he did was he called Abu Muslim Al-Khawlani rahimahullah, who was the great scholar of the time, and he convinced him, he tried to convince him, and he wanted him to accept that I am the prophet of Allah. And of course, Abu Muslim Al-Khawlani was not someone that would, of course, get convinced. He was a great scholar of his time, and Abu Muslim Al-Khawlani right away rejected. Musaylim al-Kadhab asked Abu Muslim al-Khawlani that just repeat after me and just say these words, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And Abu Muslim al-Khawlani repeated this after. Then Musaylim al-Kadhab said, now repeat after me, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Musaylama Rasulullah. And now Musaylama said, I cannot understand, I cannot hear what you're saying. All he said was, my ears cannot listen, cannot take this message, and they're not able to understand what you're saying. So Musaylim al-Kadhab again said, now say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And Abu Muslim al-Khawlani right away said this. And then he said, now say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Musaylima Rasulullah. Again he said, I cannot hear what you're saying. So now Abu Musaylim al-Kadhab realized that he is just making a joke out of my thing, and he can actually hear me, but he doesn't want to say it. So Musaylim al-Kadhab, what he did was, he wanted to now punish Abu Muslim al-Khawlani for not accepting this message. What did he do? He told his people the same thing that was done for Ibrahim alayhi salam, that he told people to collect some wood and burn some fire, and when the fire is big and huge, throw Abu Muslim al-Khawlani in that fire. And this is what they did. They took Abu Muslim al-Khawlani after and they threw him in that fire. And the history mentions that when Abu Muslim al-Khawlani rahimahullah was thrown into that fire, he was sitting peacefully, calmly. Nothing burnt him. The fire did not even touch him. He was happy, he was enjoying, he was sitting peacefully in the middle of that fire. And he walked out, nothing had happened to him. When Musaylim al-Kadhab saw this, he knew that there was nothing he can do to him. If this punishment did not work, nothing will work for him. So what he did was he told Abu Muslim al-Khawlani, you have to leave this country, and he expelled him, he kicked him out of this country, and Abu Muslim al-Khawlani rahimahullah then did hijrah to Makkah Mukarramah, and he moved there. So this is the main lesson that we can learn from this incident, and there are many incidents, they are full of it. Umar radiallahu anhu, when he met Abu Muslim al-Khawlani afterwards, during Hajj or some season in Mecca or Medina, Umar radiallahu anhu asked him, are you that person that was thrown into the fire and nothing happened to you? Abu Muslim al-Khawlani said, that was another person. He said a name, he said that was that such person. Because Abu Muslim al-Khawlani was not his real name. This was his nickname. His real name, Allah alam what it is, so it was not known, it was not famous. So he said it was that person that was thrown into the fire, and he just said it was that person. Umar radiallahu anhu said, okay, so who are you? He said, I'm Abu Muslim. And he mentioned his own real name, that he was thrown into fire, but he did not want to mention his own goodness, that this miracle, this karama happened with me, and this incident took place with me. So he did not want to obviously talk good about him, so he did not want to mention his own name. So he just said it was that person. Umar radiallahu anhu understood afterwards that he is talking about himself. He does not want to expose his name. So Umar radiallahu anhu then made a dua. He said, Ya Allah, I thank you. And he's thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, Ya Allah, I thank you for blessing a person in this ummah with something similar to that you had blessed Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam with. That's something that you have blessed him with, the karama, the mu'jiza that he was given. Ya Allah, I thank you that you have given that similar mu'jiza in this ummah too. So anyways, so this is the first advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لا تشرك بالله وإن قطعت أو حرقت. Do not associate partners with Allah, even if you are cut in pieces or you are burnt in fire. Second advice. We have 9 advices. We have to move quick. And number 2 advice, ولا تتركن الصلاة المكتوبة متعمدا ومن تركها متعمدا برئت منه الذمة. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, second advice, do not leave the fard prayer purposely. Do not neglect, do not leave the fard prayer intentionally, purposely. وَمَنْ تَرَكَهَا مُتَعَمِّدًا بَرِئَتْ مِنْهُ الذِّمَّةِ. Whosoever will leave the salah, the fard salah, purposely, Allah's protection from him will be removed. Every person that performs Fajr prayer, or in fact any prayer, this hadith is general, it's just talking about Salat al-Maktuba. Another hadith, and Prophet ﷺ specifically tells us that whoever prays the Fajr Salah, he will be under the protection of Allah. This hadith is general, that any Salah a person performs, he automatically gets the protection of Allah. And whoever will not perform the Salah, he will not get the protection from Allah. Bari'at minhu dhimma. Whosoever will leave the Salah, Allah's protection for that person is taken away. And of course, one of the clear meanings of this that we can understand from this is that hadith is telling us that any person who will perform salah, he is in the protection of Allah. So that means that do not do any harm to that person too. Because he is in Allah's protection, you are as if doing something wrong to something that is in Allah's protection, that is given to Allah, Allah is taking care of it, and you are hurting that person, saying something wrong to that person. So that person who has performed salah, he's in the protection of Allah. Keep him safe. It's a command to everyone else that make sure you don't do anything to that person. The scholars mention this with an example, and they say that it's just like, a person, a king, a ruler, a great leader, if he gives protection to someone, that this person is under my protection, and he has security, no one should do anything to him, no one should be getting close to him. And we see how some leader, a governor, or someone that will travel, they will have security, they will have protection around them, no one can get close to them, no one can harm them. Imagine someone that whom Allah is giving security to. This is fi dhimmatillah. Allah is protecting that person. Allah's security is with that person. Imagine doing something to that governor, what kind of punishment that person would be getting. Imagine someone doing something, hurting someone that is protected by the king, protected by the leader. If someone harms that person, of course there will be a punishment from the government. That person will get punished by the government, he will be arrested. So this person who performs salah, he is in the protection of Allah. And anyone that will do anything to that person whom Allah is protecting, imagine what kind of punishment Allah would give to that person. So this is advice number 2, that do not leave the fard prayers intentionally. If anyone leaves it intentionally, Allah's protection is removed from that person. And third advice, وَلَا تَشْرَبَنَّ الْخَمْرَ فَإِنَّهَا مِفْتَاحُ كُلِّ شَرٍ. Never drink alcohol, because it is the key to every evil. فَإِنَّهَا مِفْتَاحُ كُلِّ شَرٍ. Do not drink alcohol, because it is the key to every evil. It is a key. When the door is locked and you need the key to open that door, and then you go into that house or into that room, and then you enter into it. So this khamr is a key, and that by which you will enter into a place full of evil. You're falling into an ocean of sins, of evils, when a person would drink alcohol. So this is a key to all of the evils. And we can understand this through one incident that's mentioned in the books. And there was a person who was given a choice to commit 4 sins. That choose one of these 4. You have to do one of these 4. You have a choice. You don't have to do all, but you have to choose one of these 4. You can choose whichever you feel that you want to do. It's light for you, easy for you. You can choose it. And those 4 sins that the person was given the choice for was, number 1, gambling. And number 2, killing someone. You can either just gamble, commit this sin, or number 2, you can just kill someone, or number 3, you can commit adultery, or number 4, you can just drink alcohol. Any of these 4, you choose and do one of these. The person, he thought to himself, and he said that gambling is haram, Allah dislikes it, and I'm taking someone's money and wealth, I will not be able to return it. And there's so many different evils that are within the gambling. So he says gambling, it's not something that I would do. It's really something that's major. It's a major sin and it's haram. I will not do this. And then he thought about it, that okay, how about the second one? How about killing? He said that is also major. How can I kill someone, take someone's life away? I can't do that also. And then the third one was adultery. He said, no, I can't do that too. That's a major sin. I cannot do zina. And the person who does zina gets out of the fold of Islam, and he remembers all those, and he stays away from the zina. And then he says the fourth one is drinking alcohol. This one feels light, that there's no harm to anyone. It's only my personal, I will drink it and then I'll just do tawbah. I'm not doing any harm to anyone else. The other 3, I'm even harming other people. So he felt that drinking was the most lenient, most easiest one out of all 4. So he chose this one. And the incident, Allah Alam if it's true or not, but at least it's a lesson that will make us understand this part of the hadith. And the incident that continues is that the person thinking that alcohol is a very light sin compared to all the other ones, when he did this one, because of this, when he became intoxicated, he was not in his senses, he automatically then fell into doing gambling, and then fall into doing adultery, and then he even killed someone. So this hadith is telling us that when a person drinks alcohol, it opens the doors of all the other evils. A person thought that this is the most lenient, this is the most minor one out of all, and this became the reason for doing all the other sins. One hadith mentions, a very famous hadith, Al-Khamru Jumma'ul Itham. Very similar meaning. Al-Khamru Jumma'ul Itham means that the alcohol gathers all the other sins. So same thing. This hadith is saying that the alcohol is a key for all the evil, and that hadith is saying that the alcohol gathers all the other sins. It puts all the sins into this person. He starts to collect and do all the other major sins that he was not doing before that. This was the advice number 3. Moving forward, 4th advice. There are 9 advices. The last ones are shorter, so inshallah we should do them faster. The 4th advice is وَأَطِعْ وَالِدَيْكَ وَإِنْ أَمَرَاكَ أَن تَخْرُجَ مِنْ دُنْيَاكَ فَأَخْرُجْ لَهُمَا. Obey your parents. And this is what Imam Bukhari rahimahullah is bringing this hadith for. The chapter was obeying the parents. And so this advice number 4 is what the main purpose of this hadith is in this chapter. وَأَطِعْ وَالِدَيْكَ. Obey your parents. Even if they order you, they command you to take something out of your dunya, then even take that out for them. If they tell you that take out this much wealth and give it to us, take out this car, don't keep it, give it to someone else. If they tell you to remove something from your dunya, even in that obey them and remove that you have, following their command. So Prophet ﷺ is telling us in this hadith with this example, that is, even if they're telling you to do something of dunya, of course if they're telling you to do something of deen, if they're telling you to pray, a lot of times we don't even listen to them even in their good things they tell us. That they tell us pray and we don't pray. If they tell us to read Quran, we don't read Quran. If they tell us to give some sadaqah, help out someone, we don't. But this hadith, Prophet ﷺ is giving example of dunya. They tell you to do something of dunya, that take something of your wealth or of your dunya and give it to someone. Take it out from your position. Even if they tell you to do that for them. If they ask you for anything, they tell you, give us some wealth, give it to them. If they tell you to give anything from your wealth, from your dunya, do that and remove that of dunya from you too. Once there was a sahabi who asked Rasulullah ﷺ that my parents, they're always asking me for my wealth. They're in need of me, they're old, and they're always asking me for money, for food. What should I do? Rasulullah ﷺ told this person, Anta wa maluka li abik. That forget about the wealth they're asking you. Not only that you should be giving the wealth to them, Anta wa maluka li abik, even you yourself and your wealth all belong to your father. Not just your wealth. So this hadith is telling us a very similar thing, that if your parents tell you to remove something from this dunya, of your dunyawi things, worldly things, even remove those things from you. 5th advice. وَلَا تُنَازِعَنَّ وُلَاةَ الْأَمْرِ. And do not argue with the leaders. وَلَا تُنَازِعَنَّ وُلَاةَ الْأَمْرِ. Do not argue with the leaders, with the rulers, with the governor, with the kings, whoever are in charge, whoever are responsible, whoever are above you. Don't argue with those people. Wulat al-amr is general. It's not just necessarily a king or any person who is responsible, who is above you, whom Allah has given power above you. Obey those people. Do not argue with them. وَلَا تُنَازِعَنَّ وُلَاةَ الْأَمْرِ. Do not argue with those who are responsible, with your leaders. وَإِنْ رَأَيْتَ أَنَّكَ أَنْتَ. Even if you believe that you are on haqq, even if you believe that you are correct, even then they are wrong. They're telling you to do something which you know it's not right. You know that what you're doing is right, and they're telling you to do something wrong. Even then, obey them. Imagine if they tell you to do something right. So, وَإِنْ رَأَيْتَ أَنَّكَ أَنْتَ. Even if you believe that you are right, you are correct. This happens everywhere, in your jobs, in your workplaces, in your and when you come to the masjid, when you go to schools, wherever we are. Any person that's responsible for that place and has the authority, has the power for that, do not argue with those people. Even if you think, even if you believe that you are correct. This was number 5. Number 6, وَلَا تَفِرْ مِنَ الزَّحْفِ وَإِنْ هَلَكْتَ وَفَرَّ أَصْحَابُكَ. And never run away from the battlefield, even if you are being killed, or and your companions, your partners are all running away. In the battlefield, this is Prophet ﷺ's advice is in the battles, when there's an army, that in that situation, when there's a war taking place, the rule for the Muslims, for the mujahideen would be that never run away from your enemies, never run away from the battlefield, even if you're being killed. And you see that all of your companions, your partners, they all have run away, you are alone, and now you are the only one there, you are being attacked, even then don't run away. Don't turn your back. Still face them. Become shaheed, whatever I have to do. Don't turn your back away from the battlefield. And number 8. Number 7. وَأَنْفِقْ مِنْ طَوْلِكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. And spend on your family according to your abilities. According to your wus'a, according to your ability, spend on your family. And sometimes we see two extremes in this. One extreme is that some people will not spend at all on their families. Even that is not correct. You have the means, you have the wealth, and your family needs new dresses, new clothes, something in their house, and you have the wealth, you have the means. Then spend on your family. So some people will go to the extreme and not spend anything. There will be bakhil, there will be holding everything back. And opposite, some people will spend extra, will overspend. So Prophet ﷺ is telling us to do i'tidal and be in the middle. وَأَنْفِقْ عَلَى مِنْ طَوْلِكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. According to your ability, according to how much you can. Don't go out of your way. You don't have to burden yourself. Whatever easily you can, spend on your families. وَأَنْفِقْ مِنْ طَوْلِكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. Spend on your family according to your abilities. And then 8th advice, وَلَا تَرْفَعْ عَصَاكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. And do not raise your stick, your staff on your family. Don't beat them, don't torture them, don't hurt them. وَلَا تَرْفَعْ عَصَاكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. Do not pick up your stick on your family for hurting them, for torturing them. Even if they're wrong or right. That's the Prophet ﷺ's advice is general. وَلَا تَرْفَعْ عَصَاكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. Always have good morals. Always advise them. Always teach them the lesson, if you have to teach them a lesson, in a good way, without torturing them. وَلَا تَرْفَعْ عَصَاكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. Never raise your stick or your staff on your family. And the final advice, 9th advice of Rasulullah ﷺ that was given to Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu, that is وَأَخِفْهُمْ فِي اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Always make them fearful of Allah Azza wa Jal. Regarding the family, again, is talking about that the last 3 advices are regarding the family. وَأَنْفِقْ مِنْ طَوْلِكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. Spend on your family. That was regarding the family. And then 8th one, وَلَا تَرْفَعْ عَصَاكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. Do not raise your stick on your family. And then the last one, the 9th one, is also regarding the family. وَأَخِفْهُمْ فِي اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Always make them fearful of Allah Azza wa Jal. Do not make them scared of yourself. Do not always yell at them. Do not always torture them. Do not always beat them. Do not always be harsh to them and make them scared of you. Rather, أَخِفْهُمْ فِي اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Always make them afraid and have them fear Allah. Of course, if the person has the fear of Allah, all of his situations will be correct. There is no need to yell at that person. There is no need to hit that person. If the person has a taqwa, he has a fear of Allah, he will never do anything wrong purposely. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to follow all of these 9 advices. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.